Hi y'all, I'm Rose from the North Branch, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make some eco-friendly crafts using supplies you probably already have lying around your house. The first thing I'm going to show you today is how to turn an ordinary t-shirt into a pretty cool looking tote bag. So to make your t-shirt tote bag, you're going to need three things. An old t-shirt that you don't mind cutting up, some fabric scissors, and a permanent marker. The first thing you're going to want to do is turn your t-shirt inside out and lay it flat on the table. Next, you'll take your marker to draw a scoop about 1.5 inches around the collar of your shirt. We're going to cut this out to form the dip in our bag. You'll also be cutting off the sleeves right at the seam, but if you want to trace those with marker, you can too. These are going to form the handles of our bag. Lastly, you'll want to draw a line across the shirt 1.5 inches above the bottom. This is where we'll cut our tassels later. Here I'm very carefully cutting off the sleeves of the shirt, kind of like I'm making a muscle tee. It'll look something like this. And once you cut off the collar, it's going to look a little something like this. Now we have our handles. Now cut 1-inch strips up to where you drew your line all the way down the shirt. After you've cut all your strips, kind of spread out the bottom of the shirt so that it's easier to tie the ends together. You're going to tie the first 2 pairs of strips together and then the next 2 pairs of strips together. Because this leaves a hole at the bottom of the shirt, you're going to take a strip from each pair and tie them together to close the gap. You'll keep doing this all the way down the shirt, making sure there's no gaps. Make sure you tie them tightly, and it's okay if it bunches up. Once you have all your tassels tied together in knots, it should look something like this. The last step is to go ahead and take your t-shirt and turn it right side out. Once you turn your t-shirt right side out, you've got yourself a very cool, unique little tote bag. The second thing I'm going to show you today is how to turn ordinary newspaper into some cool homemade paper. In order to make your recycled paper, all you're going to need is some newspaper or whatever scratch paper you have lying around the house, some absorbent cloth that you don't mind getting dirty. I'm using an old black scrap piece of cloth, but you can use an old t-shirt, old bed sheet, depending on how many pieces of paper you're going to make. A bowl, I recommend metal if you are using newspaper because the news ink is going to stain anything plastic. First, rip all your paper into little pieces. They don't have to be neat or perfect. Next, add them to a bowl. Cover the paper with enough water so that it's about 1 inch above the paper. We're going to let this soak for a while, that way we can mush it up with our hands. After it's been soaking for about a day, you're going to be able to just take your hands and squish and mush up that paper until it's nice and pulpy. It's going to look something like this. Doesn't look pretty, but it's going to have an awesome result in the end. Lay out your cloth. As you can see, I've already used this one to make paper. Grab your paper pulp and try to spread a nice even layer on the cloth. The edges don't have to look uniform because you can cut it into whatever shape you'd like to in the end. You just want to make sure that there's no gaps in the paper pulp. Next, fold your cloth over. Try to squeeze out as much moisture as you can. It's still going to be pretty wet, but we don't want it soaking wet or else it's not going to dry properly. Lastly, put your paper somewhere to dry for 24 to 48 hours. After your paper has dried, you can cut it to the desired shape you want. I like the more traditional square shape. It's going to be a lot thicker than your average computer paper, so that'll make it good for different crafts or activities. It can hold quite a bit of weight. It's pretty durable too. So nothing's getting through this anytime soon unless you lay something really heavy on it. And lastly, I'm going to show you how to turn some ordinary plastic shopping bags into some plastic yarn. To make your plastic yarn or plarn, you are going to need just some plastic bags. I recommend, if you are going to make a whole ball of yarn, anywhere from 20 to 30, and some scissors. To make your plarn, you're going to want to lay your first plastic bag as flat as possible on your table. This is going to ensure that we're cutting everything evenly. Next, cut straight across where the handles are, and cut straight across where the bottom is. We don't need those pieces to make our plarn. Now, carefully fold up your plastic bag so that you have a nice little roll of plastic, like so. Cut 1-inch strips of plastic just all the way down the bag. They don't have to be perfect, but you want to try to get them at least a bit even. It'll look something like this. Now take your plastic strips and unroll them. Here comes the tricky part. We are going to be forming a basic lark's head knot using the plastic strips. So take one, loop it through the other, like so, and pull it through so that you have a nice knot. I'll show you one more time. I'm going to take a plastic strip, loop it through the other one, pull it through until you have a nice knot. You're going to continue this with all of your plastic strips. Now, if you happen to pull a plastic strip through too tightly and it breaks, that's okay. All you need to do is tie the two ends of the plastic strip together to form a knot. And these knots are okay because if you crochet it, then crochet is already made of knots, so you're going to be hiding the knots anyway. I personally like to use a big old crochet hook, and I just single crochet back and forth until it's as big as I want it to be. This right here is a nice little coaster that you can set down a bowl or plate. Now you want to make sure you don't set anything too hot on it because it is plastic and that will melt. So now you can take your new t-shirt tote and put your plarn inside it. And if you want, you can also write a note on your new paper. Thank you for crafting with me. See you again soon.